commercial property subject to volatility based upon the economy. Everything was supposed to collapse during COVID. Commercial property was supposed to take the biggest dive. We all know the opposite happened. But what are the things that people need to be aware of? Economic sensitivity and how it impacts and affects commercial property.
See, there's a myth about commercial doesn't grow, which is completely false, and we can touch on that. But generally, they grow exactly the same. Funnily enough, if you compare all types of asset classes, Sydney industrial has been the best performer in 20 years. But on average, they all have kind of 6%-ish capital growth. But that's also where the myth comes from, because basically when the economy slows down, commercial stops growing, but residential sometimes can still grow. So they get this counter-cyclical. That kind of got distracted during COVID. This is the biggest fear. People say, oh, when the economy turns, therefore commercial property is going to go vacant. That's not always the case. It depends what you're buying. If you're buying like medical center in retail, or a hairdresser, or a panel beater, or a mechanic, they don't just die down. You might get a lack of rental increases, but it's very unlikely, if the businesses in suburbia aren't thriving, that the residential properties are going to thrive, unless it's an investor market, like if it's an owner-occupied market, because the people who will live in that suburb generally use those services, so they have to remain on par. But yes, if there's a downturn in an economy, it also doesn't matter where you put your money, because people always need a roof over their heads, and the roof comes from a warehouse. But that's also one of my principles at Policey Property is we only buy commercial property typically with a good land component.